Welcome to this week's Rider Support.
This week we're going to talk about chronic training load ramp rates. If that sounds confusing, it won't be once we explain it. The accuracy of power meters. But first, 5 things you absolutely need to be doing before you get started with your winter training. Sarah.
Anthony, okay, first question. Hi, Anthony. Every year I dive headfirst into winter training only to burn out or get sidelined halfway through the season. This time I want to start smart and actually make it to spring in one piece. Are there any key steps that I should never skip before kicking off winter training? What's actually essential to set myself up for a solid winter season?
I actually love that question. There's very few people think about the off-season period. Everyone's always geeking out on, the latest session or, the latest supplement, or kind of looking for a
quick
hack.
fix.
Yeah, and it's the opposite to that. This is like rooted in good planning, and I really like that. Appeals to that inner nerd. I think the first one is take a proper break. A lot of people, it's a long summer, and now we've events from even someone that's a hardcore only ever rides the road. That's starting to get a little bit grey now, and most people ride a little bit of mountain bike, a little bit of gravel, the odd sportif, a gravel event, a road race, a time trial. It's a busy summer for anyone, and that carries a lot of like physical fatigue, mental fatigue, cost on relationship fatigue, opportunity cost of what you could be doing with your significant other or family. So taking 2 to 4 weeks, depending on your level, 4 weeks if you're not a serious, totally off the bike, I think is a great idea. Win some capital with your significant other by going away on holidays, going out to movies, walks to farmers markets at the weekend, and also stay off the bike until you're dying to get back onto it. You should be really yearning to get back onto this bike. Especially the last few days, you'll be, I wish I was back training. So I think that's the first one. Then I would get back into a training to train phase instead of training straight away. And let me draw a line in that. A training to train phase is you're riding the bike, you're climbing, you're running, you're rowing, you're going to the gym, diving into a CrossFit class, but you're not straight back into structured sessions, but you are straight back into moving every day. Whereas in your time off, you're going to be eating the food you never eat. You're going to be indulging like you never indulge. But now you're getting back into movement. Cross training is ideal, but don't go from never running all year to doing 10 kilometers on week 1. That's just like a recipe for injury. Yeah. Then a yearly checkup. Now this sounds a little bit weird, but I think almost every pro cyclist is now doing a yearly checkup, and a lot of amateurs. I can't remember the year, but Cavendish was unstoppable. He was like a force of nature at the time, and he missed the entire Spring Classic season because he didn't go to the dentist in the off season.
Oh, wow.
And figure out that he had a wisdom tooth problem, and he had to get it out near Milan-San Remo, and missed San Remo and the entire spring because of that. That's something that could have easily been picked up if he had went to the dentist in November. Had that work done then, and then you can take the chill time to recuperate. So I would add into that yearly checkup like a blood work. Is there any underlying problems you have that you can fix now?
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. I never would have thought about that at all, because you do tend to just completely ignore that. A lot of riders are time crunched. They're just about squeezing everything in that they're currently doing, and don't have that time to go, okay, let's pause for a minute. Let's go and get the old MOT done. Check the chassis. Hasn't got any rust on it.
You're losing your hair.
Hair plugs, yeah. Straight over to Turkey.
Get Turkish teeth. What are we on? That's 3. Number 4, I think admin, I call it. I robbed this phrase from a military guy I had on the podcast, a Navy SEAL, and he loves this idea of admin. Admin's all the stuff that goes into preparing for battle. So I've robbed it for cycling. Admin is all the stuff that goes into riding your bike that isn't riding your bike. Off season's a great time to get ahead of admin. Are your bikes mechanically sound? Is this the fleet of bikes you're going to ride for the entire year? Are you going to upgrade a group set? Are you going to upgrade your wheels? Is there discs that are slightly warped that need to be changed? Do that in the off season. Get all the repairs and upgrades out of the way in the off season, because you have a little bit of extra time. And when you do get back training, time is at a premium, and it's hard to even get the headspace between work, family and training to think about what problems need to be solved. So step back and solve those problems and plan ahead. Look at what events you have for the next, 12-month period. And even batching stuff like tires. Like tire technology is not going to change that much over the course of the next 7 or 8 months. Like can you be buying your tires? Can you be buying your spares that you need for the entire year right now, especially as it's coming up to like Black Friday sales and stuff?
And it's a good time to start tinkering around with your bike and getting to know it a little bit better if you haven't been working on your bike at all, because you're not going to need it, for the usual 5 days a week that you're normally spent on it. So have a little play around with it.
You're thinking of starting a mechanics course, which kind of falls into that, laying the foundation.
Yeah, I'm signed up for a mechanics course starting in December. So, because there's been huge gaps in me feeling comfortable going out on the gravel roads on my own, or even on the roads. If something happened, I'm completely at a loss as to how I might get myself out of trouble. It's literally call a cab kind of stuff. I could just about change a tube. So yeah, I'm going to do a mechanics course, and sure, I won't even need you then.
And then the last one is, for me, it's taken time to envisage what a successful year looks like. I remember meeting my coach at the time. He was riding for Sky, Michael Barry. He'd been down in his house and meeting for a coffee. And he's like, if we met for a coffee this time next year, what's the perfect year look like? And then let's start optimizing towards that. And the perfect year, it's like, what do the training blocks look like? Are we going away? When are we going away? It's planning out that kind of macro overview, again, to steal that Navy SEAL who's front of mind after my last reference to him. He had this idea of the general's tent. The general doesn't concern himself with the minutiae of individual little brawls. He's a big strategy guy. He wants to float above and move the pieces around the board. So, like, when are you going away? Are you doing?
Have you any big events?
Altitude, big events, all of that. Like, and what's your goals for the season? All rolled into that kind of annual training plan. I think those 5 things would be a really good spot to start your off season in.
I like that you said realistic goals as well, because you do always talk about winter dreamers and winter dreaming, and then you do see people who train really hard in the lead up for the Christmas World Champs, which are
World Champs are a real thing.
Fictitious, but you're training so hard for basically nothing.
That's basically me at the moment.
You're going to peak on New Year's Eve, and then that's going to be it. So kind of plan it out quite carefully. But yeah, it's tricky to get it all right. I said, do you think that you would take a 2 to 4 week totally off the bike, Anthony? I've never known you to take 2 weeks off the bike.
You've never known me to actually train though. So yeah, when I was training, I would have taken 2 to 4 weeks totally off the bike.
Okay.
So, and most of the pros would as well.
Right, okay. Amazing.
You're riding the bike every day for 11 months of the year.
And as you said, you come back absolutely chomping at the bit to get back out there, get back on the bike, like you've missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Right. Next question. I have a training plan, but sometimes I ride longer than is prescribed. If I'm feeling good or really loving the spin, should I tell my coach? Sometimes I stop my Garmin at the allocated training time. For example, if I'm supposed to do a 3-hour ride, I'll stop the recording and then do another 60 to 90 minutes after that, but I don't tell my coach. Is this detrimental to my training?
That's a really good question. It's a question I think a lot of athletes don't understand the implication of riding a little bit longer, because we're in the more is better. And we talked about last week that you're better off being 5% or 10% undercooked and 1% overcooked. I think this is kind of an extension of that. So if you think about the impact on training load and fatigue, going beyond your prescribed training time, you're down for a 4-hour ride and you decide to do a 6-hour ride, it can significantly alter the training load for that session, like the training stress score. So that's going to have a knock-on effect to your chronic training load, which, to get geeky here, your chronic training load's a 42-day running total of those training stress scores. It's also going to have a knock-on to your fatigue, which is your ATL, which is a 7-day running total of those training stress scores. So if you're consistently adding extra time to your rides, you're going to be accumulating more fatigue than your coach has planned. This can affect your performance negatively instead of improving it, as that excessive training load, it can start to manifest as overtraining symptoms because your coach isn't aware.
He's not aware.
Happening.
Yeah.
I think progression and periodization, an area we talk about a lot, and the Stephen Seiler interview that we put out a few weeks ago that went really well. We talked about this idea of periodization and building out that macro structure. Training plans, they're often designed based on principles of periodization. That's a gradual overload. So I give you 10 hours this week, I'll give you 11 hours next week, I'll give you 12 hours the week after, and then I have a decompression week. But when we start deviating from the prescription, the principles of overload are they're haphazard now. And, we could be going 15-hour week, 11-hour week. And the science doesn't tell us that's the best way long-term to progress an athlete. CTL ramp rates. So we talked about what CTL is, and sorry, this is quite a geeky answer. CTL, again, just to recap it, it's that 42-day running total of your training stress scores. So CTL ramp rates is how much your CTL can change from Monday to the end of the week. So over 7 days, how much should we change your CTL? If you're starting out, I think your goal is to get to like 80 CTL or something we'd mapped out for you. But if you started out on like a 60 CTL this week, we don't want you finishing the week on an 80 CTL. So there's parameters that you want to ramp CTL within. And those parameters exist based off observations of athletes and the hundreds of thousands of files the Training Peaks have seen, that when you ramp CTL too fast, you're starting to see athletes getting sick, you're starting to see athletes getting injured. So when you add in a bunch of extra duration yourself, it's affecting CTL ramp rates. So it's putting you into that risk of overtraining, injury, illness.
But also, if this listener is feeling really good and, occasionally he says to himself, oh, I'm in a flow state here. I'm not going to call this session short because I'm really enjoying it. I'm having a laugh with the group, or, I'm out with a great bunch today. It's okay to do that occasionally, obviously, isn't it? But it sounds like this is happening quite regularly. So would you recommend that if he is doing this quite regularly, that he doesn't stop his Garmin and is honest with his coach? Because that will then have a knock-on effect with his following week's
you definitely
coaching.
Don't stop your Garmin.
Because that's what he's doing.
What's the point of that?
Yeah, that's what he's doing here. So if he is going to go over on his rides, at the very least, record it.
And communicate it. Yeah. I think athletes overemphasize, or I think they think the usability of this data. It takes a long time to go through someone's training file. And no coach, unless you're paying a world tour coach, is spending an hour trawling through data. So
he's not looking on the map where that you didn't stop your file at home. He's actually not going to notice that probably. Yeah.
So communicate to him as well, because I think if you communicate it and you have done a longer ride, there's tools now you can use where you can start to adjust recovery periods to account for this. But yeah, it's not gradually or genuinely a good idea, but like you say, occasionally it's fine. The poison is in the dose. If you do it all the time, not a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Hey Anthony, so in our group rides, there's this ongoing battle to be first to each town sign, and I'm determined to finally leave my buddy Tom in the dust. Last week, I thought I had him, but he flew by me like I was standing still. I know power is important, but I'm guessing there's more to it than just hammering the pedals.
Roadman, are you ready for the world's greatest cycling show? Roller Alive is back and it is bigger than ever. It's taking place in the iconic Truman Brewery in London from November 14th to November 16th. Roller Alive brings cycling culture to life like never before, with over 80 of top cycling brands in the world and a star-studded lineup. It's the ultimate event for cycling fans, cyclists, and anyone who just lives and breathes life on two wheels. The guest lineup, it's insane. Cycling royalty like Tom Pidcock, Kassianu Madoma, Luke Rowe, Lachlan Morton, and even the legend, Mr. Greg LeMond. They'll be live on stage, sharing stories, insights, and giving you a little bit of inspiration. This is Roller Magazine brought to life. It's an epic celebration of the people, the products, and the passions that define the sport. But folks, tickets are going very fast. Opening day has already sold out. There's limited tickets left for the Friday and Saturday. And if you're looking for an extra special experience, consider upgrading to a VIP pass to get exclusive access to the private lounge, which has artisan food and drink, guaranteed stage seating, and meet and greet with the star-studded speakers. Now here's an amazing deal for our Roadman listeners. You're going to get 10% off your ticket purchase price when you use the exclusive code ROADMAN10 when you're checking out. That's ROADMAN Head over to roller.cc/live for all the details and to book your ticket now. Don't miss out on the cycling event of the year. I'll be there, so make sure you come and say hello.
Any tips on when to launch the sprint, positioning or technique? Should I always be in the drops, or are there any other tricks to make sure that I come out on top? We actually had a similar question to this about a year ago, I think. Sprinting for town signs is classic cyclist behaviour.
Yeah, it's a kind of a weird question. It's probably just me being pedantic and he's just typed it in haste. But like, I'm assuming on their group ride, they're not sprinting for every town sign. That just sounds like absolute chaos.
You just say each town sign, but
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you know which town signs are? Is it just whoever kicks off first?
Well, no.
Let's say you're out. Let's say
think about our group ride on a Saturday. We go through probably 7 towns. We don't sprint for every single town sign. It'd just be men all over the road, bodies everywhere. You normally have like one assigned sprint point.
Okay,
on
there
the
is an
ride.
assigned sprint
Well, like we
point.
sprint down the side of the airport.
Yes.
And it's like a nice road, good surface. And so
Straight.
everyone knows it's going to be a sprint and a regroup. But if you sprint for every single town sign, like towns could be like 2 kilometers apart. It's just like a full gas. You need to go back and listen to the group ride episode.
Okay, well let's assume it's one or two.
Okay.
Yeah. How can he improve? I'm listening very intently here because I always, like this listener, get completely left back in the dust. On occasion, I can hang on the wheel. Anthony will turn around. He'll notice that I'm behind him, and he'll kind of be like, "What are you still doing here?"
Yeah.
So yeah, give us some good tips here for this.
So I think mostly your problem mostly is, and this is maybe a good place to start, because if you work backwards from the beginning of the sprint, it's kind of starting to ramp up. So if you think of the equivalent of in a pro race, it's like 5k out, it's starting to ramp up. That's kind of what's happening coming into the town sign sprint. It's getting faster and faster. Positioning is just the key thing there. If you're on the wrong wheel and somebody isn't motivated to sprint, people have different goals during a group ride. Not everyone wants to sprint full gas. So if you're positioned behind someone who isn't too keen on sprinting, and then as soon as the speed ramps up, they let a gap open, now you have to come out in the wind to close the gap, to back in to get shelter. That's taking a good bit of juice out of your sprint already.
Exact thing happened to me on Saturday, where I just had a really bad position. Everything was lined out in single file because it was a headwind. Tried to move up the group, and then just, I was getting energy sapped because my nose is out in the wind, and it just kicked off and I had nothing left. Yeah, positioning is so important, isn't it?
So position, and you're hitting wind, so you're definitely in the drops. Like, you're not in the hoods for any of this sprint. You ride the hoods quite a bit still. You haven't got into the flow of riding.
No, I
the
haven't
drops.
had the confidence yet really it's particularly riding a group ride on the drops. So yeah, it's something to...
That's minimising your surface area. Like we all talk, like the Ghibli we used, it's all calculating coefficient of frontal drag. You want to make that surface area as small as possible. That's very applicable to sprints. So it's positioning is the main thing, I would say. So the positioning becomes this game of surfing from wheel to wheel, where you're trying to see who's, on the ascendancy. You don't want to get caught behind somebody who's kind of on the way back, because if you're not moving up in this little dynamic group, you're moving back. So there's no holding your place. You're constantly moving up, because if you're not moving up, someone else is moving up, and that's de facto pushing you back. So you need to be surfing up. And then I think it's reverse engineering where you want to launch your sprint. So it's understanding the conditions. Where are you sprinting to? Are you sprinting into a headwind, a crosswind, a tailwind? If it's a headwind, I don't really want to be going, for me, much more than 150 meters. So I don't want to be hitting wind before 150 meters. So I'll try and surf wheels. And then with 150 meters to go, find a gap. I'll try and understand, if it's a regular route like we do, where's the clean line? Like, where's the road surface doesn't have potholes that I can sprint in without having to worry about, my chain getting bopped or me hitting something and going over the bars. But if it's a tailwind, you're going to open up that sprint in a totally different place, because it's a tailwind, you'll know, okay, I can hold 10, 15 seconds. It's going to take me maybe 250 meters in a tailwind. So that's affecting your position into, so you're trying to work it backwards. You're like, okay, if I want to be on the front of the group or launching my sprint at 250 meters to go, where do I want to be at 500 meters to go? If I need to be there at 500 meters to go, where do I need to be at 1 kilometer to go? So you don't want to be too far forward too early, because then you find yourself in a position like you're on the front of the group with 400 to go, and now
Yeah.
people are running at you from behind at speed at 250 to go.
And that's another really good point about positioning and kind of tactics. Like we take a left-hand turn into this road, and it's kind of determined by the group and who's feeling kind of lively when the sprint really kicks off. And you're always quite cute. You'll always stay behind a good wheel and let the guys kind of do a lot of work up the front for the first couple of 100 meters, and then you'll suddenly shoot off. So there's tactics and holding your nerve a little bit that's involved also.
And I also think I sent a client this message during the week during a sprint session, because he went out the door and everyone's tired, everyone's balancing a lot of conflicting demands. So you go out the door, you look, what's my session today? I have 4 10-second sprints. The temptation is just to go out and go, 4 10, okay, time to sprint, like sprint. Do my sprint, done, do my next sprint, done. Sprints are about violence. Sprints are about like trying to pull the handlebars off the bike, trying to smash the pedals and the crank off. They're like absolutely ferocious. So I find visualization quite helpful. I'm doing a sprint. So I think about a stick of dynamite, and the 10 seconds before I visualize like the fuse ticking down to the dynamite. And then when it's time to sprint, it's like pow,
Boom.
and you're exploding through the
That's
pedals,
so
trying to
cool.
cause maximum damage to the pedals. That's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, it's kind of I find it quite hard to mimic the sprint feeling when you're training, because, again, talking about our group ride, and we know that sprint is coming up kind of in the last quarter of the ride every Saturday. And it's something that you can feel is really palpable in the group. We turn that corner onto that straight stretch. People are ditching water out of their bottles, they're tightening their boas, like everyone's kind of getting a little bit antsy as to when it's going to kick off, and it's a really exciting part of the group spin. But yeah, I think your tip for training and trying to mimic with that intensity is really good, because it's something I certainly don't do when I'm
but
doing
also
my
your
sprint
experience
sessions.
is very common to most people's experience in these club ride sprints. They don't get to sprint. You've never had the chance to sprint.
No.
Because the sprint for you, it's not rolling into the sprint at 25, 30 kilometers an hour where you're comfortable, and then you get to sprint. It's ramping from 30 to 35 to 40 to 45 to 50.
I'm surviving.
And so you never get a sprint. So it's a totally different effort. So I think if you are trying to get better at these as well, it's important to replicate the effort. And so look at your power meter, look at your heart rate file and go, what's actually happening there? How long is the run in to this? And now can I replicate that in training? Because if you can't get through that period, you'll never get to actually launch that final sprint.
Yeah, it's great fun for anyone who doesn't incorporate these into your spins or group rides or rides with your buddies. It is a very fun way to throw in a little bit of crack and a bit of competition into the group.
Roadman, I know how serious you take your goal setting, whether they're fitness or life-related goals. If you're looking for a powerful ally to support you on this journey, look no further than Huel. Huel has become my secret weapon for when I don't have time to prepare a balanced meal. It ensures I get the nutrition I need without sacrificing time or taste. Plus, it stops me from reaching for that takeaway menu. I always throw a bottle into my backpack when I'm heading into the city to work, and it stops me eating junk convenience foods, snacking on croissants and bars of chocolate, because I know they don't support my training goals. It's a handy, nutritious meal on the go, and it's got over 22 grams of protein. Huel is perfect for athletes that don't have time to cook or prepare food before a training session. It's convenient, nutritious fuel at your fingertips, ensuring you hit your daily fueling needs for that session. Huel Ready to Drink has 26 essential vitamins and minerals in every single bottle. You're getting a whopping 175 health benefits. Plus, it's made from natural ingredients like tapioca, sunflower seed, coconut, and more. The best part, it's the flavors. There's 8 crazy, beautiful flavors. Iced coffee is what's in my backpack right at the moment. You can get Huel directly to your home. All you got to do is head on over to the Huel website, huel.com/Roadman.
Okay, next question. Anthony, what is possible or common in terms of TSB, training stress balance? Recently, I've been building fitness and would like to know how deep you can go before a rest. That's another great question.
This is a really interesting question. So training stress balance, we call that form. So training stress balance, it's a critical metric on the training peaks management chart, especially for athletes who are looking to optimize performance without overtraining and don't want to push past that edge. So TSB is calculated by subtracting your acute training load, which we talked about, that's your fatigue score over 7 days, from your chronic training load. So you're taking one from the other. So it essentially measures the balance between fatigue and fitness. So that's what we call form, is that balance between fatigue and fitness. A nice way to illustrate that is like someone just finishes the Tour de France. We're going to have a bet on who's going to win a bike race, a one-day race. So we're going to have, like, we'll say Milan-San Remo is the day after the Tour de France. I mean, you're going to have a bet on who's going to win it. Pogacar's just absolutely dominated the Tour de France, and now he's going into Milan-San Remo. He's obviously very fit. He's just ridden the entire Tour de France. He's very fit, that's no doubt, but his fatigue is very high. We take someone else who doesn't ride the Tour, we say Wout van Aert, who doesn't ride the Tour de France, and he's been on the beach for 2 weeks. He's done absolutely nothing. His fitness is super low, but his fatigue is also super low. The person we're really probably looking for is the person who rode the first week of the Tour de France and then took it easy, because he has form. He has fitness and he has low fatigue, and we call fitness and low fatigue form. And that's what we're looking to achieve with training stress balance. So when you have someone going into an event and they taper, we try and build fitness, shed fatigue, so form comes up.
Wow.
So
wow, that's cool.
That's kind of what that is. So to understand TSB, it's a positive TSB indicates that you're well rested, but potentially overtrained. A negative TSB indicates you're possibly overreaching, and that could lead to, overreaching injuries, illness, if it's there for too long. So it's a numeric number. So he's looking to understand and interpret his number at the moment. If you're negative TSB of 30 or lower than that, this suggests a very high level of fatigue relative to your fitness. Now, this is common during peak phases of training. If you're away at a training camp or something like that, a super compensation period, but you can only sustain that for short periods of time before you risk injury, illness, burnout. Moderately negative TSB would be -10 to -30. And this indicates you're in a loading phase. Fatigue is acceptable because there's no fitness without fatigue. Athletes will often dip into that range during building training blocks. Neutral, slightly negative TSB be like -10 to +5. This is often what we target during a taper phase to get ready for a race. And then a positive TSB, it's ideal for like key events, for your main one for the entire year. So how deep can you go is his question with your TSB. I think that's going to be very individual, and that's going to be like, some athletes are just going to recover faster than others due to like genetics, age, training history, lifestyle factors like sleep, nutrition, stress management. We talk about this kind of trifecta of looking at the data from training peaks, marrying your own subjective feelings, and looking at the data from your Whoop. And I think that's super important for understanding. If you're at a -20 and you're thinking, I actually feel really good here, and then you're looking at trends on your Whoop data and you're saying, okay, last time I was at a -20, I actually was really good. Sleep was good. Heart rate variability was good. So it's all lining up to say, actually, I'm not too bad. I can go a little bit deeper here. So if you look back at Whoop trends and you look and you see, last time I was at -30, everything went to bits. My sleep was terrible. My heart rate variability was terrible. I think that's an indication to not start pushing past that. So it's really a case of listening to your body and looking at that trifecta of data between training peaks, subjective feelings, and Whoop or wearable data to see how deep you can push.
Yeah, so you're going to go through all of those phases, aren't you? Where your form is going to ebb and flow as you're going through a training cycle towards your main event.
Yeah, but I suppose his question is, how deep can he go? Like, it's not an exercise in trying to get as deep as you can.
Okay.
So it's because your fatigue, if you think about what it is, it's one subtracted from the other. So if you're going that deep, it's a case of maybe your fitness isn't high enough relative to your fatigue. That a good example of this would be someone who's on like 10 hours a week, but then they get December off work and they're like, well, can I do 35 hours a week for all of December? And you're trying to see how low you can go with TSB. It's a game that's really fraught in danger, because you could just totally blow and undo all your good work.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, next question. Hey, Anthony, I've been training on my watt bike indoor and have a new power meter on my road bike. But here's the problem. My numbers never match up. Indoors, I'm putting out solid power, but outside it always seems lower. Last week, I thought I was crushing it until I saw my outdoor numbers and felt like I'd lost half my strength overnight. Is there a reason my power readings differ so much between indoor and outdoor setups? And is one more reliable than the other?
good podcast with Yuli Schrober, who's the founder of the Power Meter, the like actual creator, not the founder of a brand. He founded
the OG,
SRM, but
yeah.
he created the technology that is Power Meters, which is just a wild story how we thought we needed to solve that problem. I'm just fascinated by those minds. But there's huge variance from Power Meter to Power Meter. You can have Power Meter A with, you know, say it's a Stages brand, you know, notoriously weren't too reliable. Now we have brands like 4i, which are like good reliability and quite affordable, versus a Quark or an SRM. They're gonna read different. The important thing is that it's reading consistently. So you want a Power Meter that's reading consistent. When you're going from bike to bike, that's when, you know, you're playing this comparison game, because you probably don't have zones set differently from bike to bike. And if you have two Power Meters that are, you know, wildly different, it's almost like you need to set different zones for the two Power Meters.
It's a bit soul crushing, isn't it? Because our Watt bike reads low in comparison to my four eyes Power Meter on my Cervelo. So when I'm trying to hit those numbers that I would be hitting inside, it can be a little bit...
Now, there can be user error as well for people, because strain gauges calibrate to temperature. So if you're calibrating you need to zero offset your Power Meter before every ride.
Which is something a lot of people know nothing about. And I only occasionally remember to do it. But that's a really important point. And I don't think enough people know that this is key.
Some of the Power Meters, I think, do auto zero offset. But I like to zero offset it myself because it's based on temperature. So if your bike's been in the house like ours is, and, you know, Wes was saying going to work this morning, it was 6 degrees when he was leaving for work. Like, your house is probably going to be 21 degrees and you're going out to 6 degrees. You need to leave the bike sitting outside for a while and then calibrate. I remember my SRM at the start, first few years I was using it, was super sensitive to this. I used to have to leave it outside for like a half an hour. So I put the bike outside my mom's front door, and then I'd go and get kitted, and then I'd come back and zero offset it.
Yeah, because when I'm zero offsetting, I will roll down the road about 10 minutes and then I'll do it, just so the bike, or so the tech can kind of get to that ambient level. But it is something that everyone should be doing, I feel.
The opposite is a problem for a lot of people, where they see they're producing lower power inside, but that's just a question of heat build-up. That a few years ago we didn't really realize how important heat dissipation is. Now it's absolutely central to power production. So if you listen to the podcast I had with the founder of Core, or you look at what guys like Dan Bingham or Filippo Ganna were doing for the Aero record, they're taking in a huge amount of crushed ice and slushies and a lot of advanced cooling strategies, because there now is a recognition industry-wide that once our core temperature goes up, our performance goes down. But that's not the issue he's having here.
No, I think it's just a case of slightly different readings on different Power Meters.
Yeah, or not calibrating.
Not calibrating. And I think, as you said, if you're going to test, just set your zones based on each device that you're using, and just be careful that you're not overtraining on the one that's showing you lower watts.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never tested on 2 different devices.
Yeah, I definitely have. I mean, I did an FTP indoors before. I think it was like 235, and then I went and did a outdoor one, remember, in Sa Calabria, or it was in Mallorca somewhere. It was like 265, and you were like, oh, I think that's probably that's a massive big gap. And
like, I don't think people should have 2 different sets of zones, because like it wreaks havoc on your data and your China peaks. Like, what do you get 2 China peaks accounts? Like, I don't think it's a good idea. It's like, just calibrate your Power Meter a little bit better. And if you do have also, the zones are quite big buckets. So it's like, if it's off by 100 watts, you don't have a calibration problem.
Yeah.
You have a problem that your Power Meter is broke. Like, it should be off by 5 watts, or it should be off by 7 watts. Like, a good Power Meter, like the SRM, like scientific one, I think it's like plus or minus 0.5%. When you move up to 4 eyes, like they're plus or minus like 1.5%. Yeah. So it's a tiny variation between those two. So if you're having like a wild variance and you're 7 or 8% off, you have a problem with your Power Meter.
Yeah.
Roadman, whether you're a weekend warrior or a world tour rider, the right tools can make all the difference. Enter 4i's Precision 3+ Power Meter, the latest innovation from 4i, designed to help you reach peak performance. The Precision 3 Plus Power Meter is a compact yet powerful unit. It weighs just 9 grams and it's packed with features that set it apart, including integration with Apple's Find My network, giving you the peace of mind by letting you track your power meter wherever it is. Plus, you've got up to 800 hours of battery life. We all know that accuracy is key, and 4eyes delivers a groundbreaking plus or minus 1% accuracy thanks to their unique 3D strain gauge technology. For those seeking even more data, the Precision 3 Plus Pro Power Meter offers dual-sided power meter metrics, giving you detailed insights into pedaling efficiency, torque effectiveness, and left-right balance. 4eyes offers versatile product options to suit your needs. Choose from ride-ready power meters with pre-installed units on Shimano cranks, or up for factory-installed power meter where you send in your crankset for a custom installation. Ready to elevate your cycling game? Trust 4eyes Precision 3 Plus Power Meter. Precision, performance, and peace of mind all in one. Learn more by visiting 4iiii.com. That's 4iiii.com. I'm going to put that in the description down below.
Okay, last question. Hi, Anthony. So here's a question I might regret asking. I've been eyeing up some custom paint jobs for my cycling shoes. Bright colours, a bit of a flair, you know the drill. But my mates say it's a pro-only look and I'll just look ridiculous trying to pull it off on the weekend rides. What do you think? Are custom kicks cool for us regular riders, or should I stick to the basics and leave the flashy footwear to the pros?
I'm going to sit on the fence. I've no hard feelings on this at all.
A nice paint job on the bike though? Okay, whatever, let's park the shoes for a minute. On the bike, I think it'll look kind of cool.
Like, if you feel good,
yeah,
you're going to ride good.
Yeah, I think so. If you have something that is motivating you to go out on the bike and motivating you to go out training, and you feel that you look good, and that gives you that bit of a placebo effect, that confidence, that swagger.
Used to come on our training camps. Well, he still does come on our training camps. We just haven't run one in a long time. Shout out Dazzler. He has some amazing custom shoe designs.
Shoes are class.
And yeah, I think they were pretty cool. I suppose you could do it bad and you can do it well. It just depends how stylish you are.
Yeah, so you don't have any.
I wouldn't do it. I'm just not stylish enough to pull it off.
I don't know. I wouldn't do it either. I think that nice and simple, clean look is something that I would go for. But custom spray paint on your bike, I think, is kind of cool. Helmets can look kind of cool. We've seen some really cool custom paint jobs on helmets.
There's an Irish lad, the shoe doctor, does a really good job, and he's done some custom stuff for like riders like Ben Healy and things like that. So yeah, if you get someone good to do it, definitely it's a winner.
Okay.
I think we're at the end of the road. Roadman, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Rider Support. There's another episode up here. If you haven't had enough of us, you're going to really enjoy that one. And please don't forget to click down here and subscribe to the channel, because the more subscribers we get, the bigger the guests we can attract. So it's win-win for everyone. I'll see you next week.